and all that stuff.
Sure.
So I'll be putting that all in post production, but we can just make sure all our channels are on here. I think all our channels are
Sure.
on.
There we
Okay,
go.
great. I think we're ready. Okay, here we go.
Ready or not, here we go.
Ready or not? All right. Today on the show, we have Amy Corr with At Properties in Chicago, also Christie's International Real Estate. Now, let me tell you more about Amy. Amy Corr oversees the development and delivery of branded coaching, training, and business planning solutions that help agents consistently and sustainably grow their business, resulting in genuine agent satisfaction and a thriving brokerage culture. Amy's curriculum tackles every stage of the agent lifecycle, from broker fundamentals to leveling up to top producer status to building and running successful teams. Her programming is practical, engaging, and actionable based on 20 years of experience as a successful, sorry about that, successful agent of her own right and award-winning managing broker. She was born and raised in San Francisco. Amy graduated from Santa Clara University, lives in Wilmette, which is basically Chicago, with her husband and her two daughters. Guys, this is a really special episode for me. I am very, very honored to bring Amy on. If you're not from the Chicagoland area, most of our audience is not. At Properties started as an independent brokerage and has as quickly or over their life cycle of their business has become one of the most successful brands for real estate and independent brands in the entire country. So this is really, really exciting. We're huge fans of At Properties. Amy, welcome. Oh, by the way, everyone go to visit atproperties.com, atproperties.com. Also, Amy does a show every week with Kevin Van Eck, and that is at on it. Follow her on Instagram at Coffee with Amy and Kevin. So at Coffee with Amy and Kevin. I will have links to all of these in the show notes, so you don't have to write this down. Amy, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for such a nice intro. You made me sound so good.
Well, you are incredibly impressive, and I am so happy to chat with you today. So I want to hear about you. I want to know your
Okay.
journey. So tell us how you started in real estate. How did you get involved?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. A lot of people usually start with how the heck did a California girl decide
Yeah,
to
how'd you
move to
go
the
from the
Midwest?
how'd you not end up in the tech world? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I kind of started in the tech world, but yeah, so I actually moved from California out to Chicago a couple years out of college, and I actually started in technology. I was moved out here by a tech firm and enjoyed it. You know, did technology for a while with a company called SSA. In fact, I looked them up to see if they still existed. They were defunct and bought by somebody else. So, oh well. But then I moved to a cool startup in I think it was 98 or 99, and worked a ton in tech, and it was super interesting, worked so many hours. But after about 3 years, I kind of was at this point where, I was getting old enough to think, what the heck do I want to do with the rest of my life? And is this what interests me? And I didn't read the what color is your parachute, but I was definitely trying to figure that out. And my now husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, kind of just planted the seed. And he said, you've always seemed like you kind of like real estate and, like looking at houses. And I didn't own anything at that point in time. And I thought, that's kind of interesting. So I explored it a little bit. Next thing you know, I enrolled at the place on Halsted Street in Chicago. Darn it,
Yeah.
who's the gentleman who owned that company? The Yellow
Re-
Hanson.
yeah,
Hanson, really?
Hanson Real Estate. Yes.
Yes, yes. So I had no clue what I was doing, right? So I decided, all right, I'm going to go ahead. I still work full time, but I went, in the evenings to study and get my license. And then I got my license. I got licensed, and I actually, I don't know if you know Jan Smith. who owned J.A. Smith and Associates in Bucktown. She actually, her old office is now our at Properties Bucktown office. She was my first managing broker. I love her. I still see her often. And I just kind of hung my license with her because she was a friend of our family members. And I kind of didn't even know what I was getting into. But I was sort of excited by the idea of I was working so many hours in technology. And what I remember hearing at the time, it was like 2002, and the market was moving, was, you know what, as if you work really hard, you can be really successful and you're your own boss. And so I found that really interesting because I was working so hard to make somebody else a lot of money. And I loved my people and where I was at, but I just felt like, you know what, if I'm going to do it, now's the time. I don't have kids, I'm still single. Why not make this change? So I jumped in and worked with Jan for a little bit and then moved over to a different brokerage firm. I worked with Susie Miner for about a year, which was great. That's where I met one of my very best friends who really kind of mentored me. And then she and I moved to At Properties in 2002. No, sorry, 2004. So, I've been with At for a really long time. I was probably maybe agent 150 at the time. So think
Wow.
about how far I'm like blown away by how far we've come. If you really think about it, I mean, I remember being in the basement of the Clybourne office, selling real estate in the city, and now look at us as a company. But it's been a really phenomenal journey. I feel really fortunate and lucky that I've just sort of been given the opportunities that I have in this industry because I'm just really passionate about it.
It's an incredible story, and I'm curious. So, At Properties has, gosh, I don't know, more than 3,000 agents. I don't know here in the
Hmm.
local Chicago area,
Correct.
at
Hmm.
least 3,000, probably more. You're
Yep.
certainly one of the biggest players, and yet, this sort of grassroots built business, which
Hmm.
competes with Compass and
Hmm.
Coldwell Banker and all Baird and Warner and all of these other big players in the space, and you guys came in and just sort of took over. And what I see having what I saw have has happened in here in Chicago is the branding of At Properties is so immersive. What it does,
Hmm.
so At Properties did something that I thought was brilliant, which as a marketer, they
Hmm.
basically said, what is and again, I don't know the conversations that led to this, so I'm just presupposing, but they basically took one of the deepest experiences in human existence, which is love,
Hmm.
and they said we want to
Hmm.
brand around love. We want, when
Yep.
people think about our brand, when
Hmm.
they think about buying homes, when they think about our agents, when they think about our sort of processes, we want to be the happy, loving, fun sort of group.
Hmm.
And they focused on the one word love, and that became your brand, and it
Hmm.
just absolutely took off. And I've yet to see another brand in any industry capitalize on love,
Hmm.
and use it as their mascot, as their brand. I mean, it is literally your mascot, and it
Hmm.
is such a strong message because, of course, all of us have a connection to that word, um,
Hmm.
you know, and we see it, and you guys have it all over the city. You can't go here in Chicago. You can't go too far in, at least here within the city limits, without seeing the word love somewhere with the At Properties kind of logo there. And they don't even necessarily talk about real estate in most of the
No.
branding efforts. That's what's
Yep.
really cool.
Hmm.
I love
But that's
I
also
re
intentional, it's also intentional. So I wasn't in the room when it happened, but I was here when it did. And, we were talking earlier about Thad Wong. I think one of the things that we have to incredibly credit him for is that, he is the mastermind from the very beginning with so much of our branding and marketing strategy. Natasha Patla, who's, our CMO now, is incredible. And the two of them together, but he really drives that. It's what he loves to do. And all of our fun campaigns, if you've watched them throughout the years, we don't take ourselves too seriously. I think that
right.
is really sort of at the root of our culture. Is we laugh a lot, and we joke a lot, even in a lot of our management. our different management meetings that we have, we just really have an enjoyment of working together, and we really want that communicated out, not just to our agents, but to the consumer. And, because when we're selling real estate, yes, it's a transaction, but think about what is related to the home and what everybody thinks about home ownership and life. And so he was sitting down with Natasha and he was like, I want to come up with a word that would just resonate with everybody, something that everyone, can relate to. And he ultimately, I think, even said everything that's, something that everyone would love. And then he was like, wait, that's
That's the
it.
word.
Yeah, and we use our intention was we're going to use it as a campaign. We obviously aligned ourselves with Matthew Hoffman, who was the artist who actually designed the script for Love, which we then licensed and purchased through him. And we just started it as something that we thought would be a cool campaign for. I don't know if it was 2016 or 2017, and then it was just like the response was crazy. So then we were like, okay, why don't we start taking this a little bit further? And we do a lot of the love magnets. People like to put those on their car. And I remember I was driving somewhere and I pulled up into to get gas somewhere in the suburbs, and I pulled in, and this guy pulls up next to me, and kind of beat up car, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what he's wanting from me. And he rolls down his window because I'm pumping gas, and he was just like, where did you get that love magnet? I've been looking for one forever. And I was like, you know what, buddy, today is your lucky day. I'm going to give you my
You
love
can have
magnet.
mine.
Yeah. And so it just became this thing that we realized had this amazing experience, and it created this amazing emotion for people. So
Yeah.
we have continued to use it, but we really try to use it in a way too that really pushes ahead of our brand. Like
Yeah.
when COVID hit, we started doing signs that were love is the unity in your community. And
Yeah.
it didn't even have at properties on it, but it was like everybody just knew. And sometimes I think when you lead with the right intention to focus on others, to give back, to figure out how can we help other people instead of serving ourselves first, the universe opens up for you. And I really do feel like that's one of the things that I have learned and developed, not just in my career, but as a human working here because we all work really hard, but I think we're always asking, like, especially for our agents, what are they needing from us right now? How can we support them, as independent contractors in, great markets, but also challenging markets. And so, the love is extended amongst one another, but then and it's also a great branding opportunity for our agents to use as they're trying to connect with their clients, and so it's kind of taken a life of its own. And so many of our affiliates, it's one of the things that they really anchor to and have just really loved having the opportunity to use in their own communities.
Yeah, I would also love to talk about, sorry for pardon the pun, would love to talk about teams because,
Yes,
switching gears kind of abruptly, only
sure.
because this year with rates being where they are and inventory being less than what most markets would prefer, we are now seeing a lot of agents moving around, right? Agents are starting to feel, oh, maybe if they're on a team, maybe they're not on the right team, maybe they're at a
Hmm.
different brokerage, maybe there's better options. And what we're seeing is this fractionization of agents, the migration of agents who are the sort of on their own, maybe thinking maybe I would be better in a collective, maybe I
Hmm.
would be better in a group versus
Hmm.
just me running everything myself. And
Hmm.
at properties has obviously embraced the team mentality. There's lots
Hmm.
of teams at properties, lots of teams at many brokerages.
Hmm.
I'm curious on what suggestions you might have to agents who are thinking about joining a team or creating a team.
Ah, good. Two very different kind of mindsets, but
Very different.
I think it's so first of all, I think that our industry, we are definitely seeing that the team model is definitely not going away. If anything else, I feel like it's getting a lot stronger. And I think for a couple of reasons. I think just the speed at which real estate is going now with technology, even if you think 20, 25 years ago, where we were just on the cusp of things being in the MLS, things being electronic. But I remember when I first started, I would still go and get signatures at night, right? Or the pace was just not quite as fast. And I feel like the consumer expectation was also not quite so high. I mean, think about what they expect now, from print advertising to digital advertising to a full blown marketing strategy to where is the exposure? There's a lot of expectation. And so at some point, as a sole practitioner, we can only handle so much, right? Because we're having to move so fast in order to compete with everybody else. So I think at some point, what I say to so many agents is that if you're going to grow, there's only one of you. So you have to figure out what is going to be your plan to scale. And what I oftentimes see is that they don't always scale the right way. I think it's sometimes just getting bodies to help is the answer, where we actually have a 2-day workshop that I built with a consultant that is a teams workshop, and it's for team leaders, for them to really kind of understand, like, am I doing this the right way? Because oftentimes they just sort of develop a team and have some people that are sort of all working together, but no one has ever really evaluated what's the strategy behind this. And so what
Sure.
we really help a lot of team leaders take a look at, and what I would encourage most team leads to do, is take a step back and see where your team is at. But what I would have them do is to almost take a sheet of paper and write down on one side, what are the things that I like to do most and I am most effective at? And then on the other side, what do I not like to do, or what should I not be doing because it's not the best use of my time? So many of the team leads that I see and consult and work with, they're great rainmakers. They're great at bringing in the business, reaching out to clients. They are phenomenal at that. What they aren't always great at is managing the rest of their people, maybe creating structure for their people. And so what I find is they're so busy out getting the business and fueling the pipeline, but then there are people who are feeling lost because that team lead just doesn't have the time to help to develop them. Or what they also don't always have is a good operations person. Operations are key, right? You've got the person who's out drumming up the business, but somebody has to be the backbone to make sure that business is being serviced correctly. And so, I really encourage agents to take a step back and start looking at what roles do I need for the type of team that I've either midway built or really want to build. And sometimes what you can look at is some of your people, you've got really great talent, they're just in the wrong spot. And
Yeah.
so, we've got lots of different, ways for team leaders to really look at stuff. But I feel like sometimes they just sort of throw people into a group and there isn't really a strategy behind the growth. And so anybody who's, has a team, I would really encourage that. And I can dive into it for hours, but really just take a step back and understand, at the end of the day, what do you want to be doing as team lead? And what is your role going to be? Because you cannot be everything. And you need to figure out what roles need to be filled. You fill yours, and then you find great people to fill those other spots. And I will tell you, you will create some amazing synergy. So that's really, I would say, for team leads. For people who are thinking about being on a team, you have to ask yourself, what is the reason for being on a team? Is it simply because I can't figure out how to fish for myself and I don't like reaching out and prospecting? Before that is necessarily your only factor, I almost would even ask you, is this the right business for you? Right?
Right.
Because a big part of being in real estate, let's face it, you've got to learn how to fish on your own. And I'm also a big believer of, you cannot expect a team leader to just hand you leads. I think the best run teams, it's not that you won't get them, but at the end of the day, that isn't their sole responsibility. And that might be some team models of overflow. But my thought is that if that ever goes away, if that overflow or the Zillow leads
Right.
that they purchase, if those dry up and suddenly the team is struggling, to me, it's all hands on deck and you better know how to fish. So the best teams, I think, are ones where team members come in and learn how to cultivate business from the best, who is their team leader. And that team leader teaches them. And then I think, yes, definitely there's overflow. But, so I think when you're a team member or somebody who wants to go onto a team, I would ask those questions. I would, and if somebody just says, hey, we're going to give you leads, That's great in the short term, but if you're in this business for the long term, you've got to learn how to develop your own book of business. That's your biggest safety net, because at some point, if that team goes away and you're standing there and you've never developed the tools that it takes to be a great agent, you're going to be starting from the ground up again.
Yeah, I've had many people on the show over the years who have talked about purchasing leads versus handing leads out organically versus working referral based business. Of course, everybody who's listening would love to have 100% of their business be referral based,
Right.
and of course, that is ultimately the goal because it's the most cost effective way to run that this business. But it takes a tremendous amount of effort to get there. But I also think it's something we probably don't talk about enough, which is raving fans. Like,
Hmm.
how do you encourage your agents to, because at properties here in the Chicago market is, if they're not the highest producing real estate brokerage, they're number two, they're number one or number two. So
Hmm.
we have an opportunity here to talk to Amy and ask her, what are you telling your agents about how to create raving fans?
Yeah. I always tell people that you need to focus on the give. I think as agents, especially when we're new in the business, and I was there, I still remember that panic attack of, am I going to be able to survive and really grow a career? And there's a lot of self doubt. I mean, we have all of these CEOs out there, right? They're CEOs of their own business, but they sometimes barely believe in themselves. And I think for a lot of them, they feel like, God, I have to go out and ask for business. I have to ask that question. Do you know anybody who's looking to buy and sell? And so I actually removed that from the equation sort of
Yeah,
altogether.
me
My
too.
big belief is, look, yeah, I mean, it's, focus on the person in front of you and figure out, what can I give to them today that's going to change their life? Maybe even just a little bit. And I play this fun game. We have a program called the Road to Rolex, and we've got over 100 agents that are in the
Yeah,
program for the year. And it's an accountability program, and they're in small groups of 5, and they meet for the entire year. And I am coaching them, like I coach each of the groups kind of once a quarter. And so I was meeting with some of them, and I said, here's what I want you to think about doing. I want you to, like, we have this amazing opportunity known as social media, Facebook, Instagram. We get to know more about the people that are in our sphere than ever before. Use it. Don't use it in a bad way or feel like it's self serving, but figure out what's going to move the needle with people. I had a great example. I had an agent who had somebody on Facebook who posted, we're going on spring break, and our dog sitter, or the place where we bring our dog, it's full, and now we're in a panic. We need somebody to come and watch our dog for a week. So one of this agent who happened to know this woman who posted it on Facebook, I said, be the connector. Focus on the give. This person needs something. Do you know anybody? She said, I actually have a girlfriend who does dog sitting part time. I said, awesome. Or actually, she told me this scenario. So she said she connected and called the woman who does dog sitting. And she said, are you available the week of the 27th? How much do you charge? Can I get this person in contact with you? So sure enough, yep, it worked. She called this other person who posted on Facebook and said, hey, I have somebody that can take care of your dog while you're gone for the week. So the beauty of that situation, she just had the opportunity to make authentic contact with 2 people in her database, and all she did was focus on the give. Focus on,
The-
how can I, create an opportunity for others. And maybe she didn't get a deal that day, but I am telling you, if you do that all day long, that is going to change the trajectory of your business.
it's that law of reciprocity thing, right? Like
Hmm.
I do good for others without the expectation of doing good to me,
Hmm.
but people are pretty hardwired to want to return favors.
Yep.
So this idea of being real estate adjacent,
Hmm.
I always like, is this, like, I'm going to be, yes, I'm going to help you with your real estate transaction. That's obviously the job of the realtor, but all
Yep.
the other stuff that exists, all the ancillary things that come up, or hey, I need a pet sitter for my dog, right?
Totally.
Like,
And it's all related to home.
it's
It's so
all
crazy.
related.
Yeah. Well, I always
If
say, sorry, no, I was just going to say, I always say to agents, it isn't just the buy and sell. It's everything in between. That in between is the secret sauce. If you take care of them in between those deals, like not only are they going to work with you again, but think about all the opportunity that comes with that. And it's, it's taking the transaction out of it. It's really focusing on the relationship piece. And yeah, it takes a little bit of lead time. I think sometimes agents get a little antsy with it, like, well, nothing's happening right now. It's like, just continue the action and it will happen. It just, if you throw something out into the universe, at some point it has to respond. Just
Right.
sometimes as agents we get impatient. So it's just let it ride, keep doing it, and you'll see the change. I've seen it in agents that I've coached over the years, and some of the biggest agents that I've really seen and work with are the best connectors. I call them super connectors. They're the person that is called for everything. Do you have a guy for this? Do you have a girl for this? Who would you recommend in this situation? It's like, you got to call Amy, or you got to call DJ because he knows
Yeah.
everybody, right? That's
Right.
who you want to be. And then the rest takes care of itself.
You really want to bring people into your ecosystem. You want to
Hmm.
create your own ecosystem so that a home buyer or seller or homeowner or renter, anyone, whenever they have needs around, home related items, that you become obviously the person that they go to, and therefore it's sort of a simple but difficult thing, right? Like, so you have
Right.
to it's simple. It's like push-ups, like good idea, hard. So I so I think creating an ecosystem is really, really important, because what you're really doing is you're solving these micro problems along the
Hmm.
way. And maybe they're not, Mike, maybe they're massive problems, but you're solving problems outside of real estate, outside of the transaction, along the way. And that's, to me, I see that is really the job. The job is,
Yeah.
how do I solve problems in between transactions for,
Yeah.
or how to provide value slash solve problems for my my sphere of influence? How do I do that? Because if I do that, I can make a reasonable assumption that a vast majority of those people, if I'm consistently adding value to their lives, are going to feel, and let's just be honest, they're going to feel that they owe you the
Yes.
opportunity to hire you for a brokerage transaction. So
Yeah.
I've thought that the home selling process is its own thing. And
Hmm.
then, and we focus a lot on that because that's what we're in the middle of at any given moment when we're dealing with a client. But if we could really expand to focus on providing value outside of that transaction as much
Hmm.
as possible, it's actually, number one, it's really fun because you
Hmm.
can accumulate and start to put all of these different vendors and services together and start to create these guides that you can then project out
Yeah.
to your clients. But you can be reaching out to them consistently, saying, what's going on with your home? How's everything going? Do you need anything?
Hmm.
Like, you can actually reach out to them, not ask, like you were saying, not asking, hey, are you thinking about buying or selling? But hey, how's everything going with your home? Do you guys need anything? I've got the best plumbers, I've got the best, etc. I think that is so tremendously valuable because, number one, every homeowner always has projects that are ongoing, right? Like, we
Hmm.
all have ongoing projects. If you are a homeowner, there's something that you're like, I need to get to that one room and paint that one wall and fix
Totally.
that one thing, and everybody's got that. So
Hmm.
if I was an agent right now, I mean, I am an agent, but I'm not a practicing agent. If I was a practicing agent today, what I might do if I was in between sales, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this,
Hmm.
I might come up with my vendor list of all the people that
Hmm.
I've worked with and, different services related to home, home stuff. And I would have that list and I would be calling my friends saying, hey, just checking in. Are there any projects currently in your home that are unfinished or you need to work on? Or hey, it also, if you wanted me to check the value of your home, I can do that too. But I just
Yep.
wanted to see how everything's going with the home. Just checking in on the home. How's it going? You need anything? I'm going to send. I mean, could you imagine? Nobody has ever made that call to me, by the way.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that would
And
be an
here's what I
incredible
want you
call.
to, here's what I want to identify. No one has ever made that call. So Kevin and I just did a coffee last week, and the first thing on the coffee was pick up the phone. I'm telling you, if you were asking me which agent is going to win this year, it's the one that picks up the phone and
Yes.
starts, face to face, man to man, voice to voice contact. It's the
Yes.
fastest way to getting to a yes or a no. And we're so afraid of no. But what if the answer is yes? And you're missing all of those yeses. That's what drives me crazy. And it's funny because agents that I do coach that get really nervous about the phone, and there's a lot of them that do. Like they can talk to anybody until the cows come
Sure.
home, but the minute that they feel like, oh my God, I'm calling somebody and I'm interrupting them, and what if
In
they don't want
particular,
my call?
even and also if they haven't been following up with them,
Yes, they feel
consistently in the
bad.
past, they're like, "Ooh, I haven't called that person in a year. It's gonna feel weird." It's good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they would rather like rip off 10 band-aids off their arm as opposed to have to make that call. But so it's funny. So what I had encouraged a lot of agents to do is, there's those straight to voicemail apps, slide
Love
dial.
them.
And
Yep.
so I said, you know what, let's warm up with this. And
Yes.
so then they would push back on me and they would say, yeah, but they know that I'm going straight to voicemail. So then I say, then just own it. Call them and say, "Hey, Bob, you know what? I wanted to give you a phone call and I wanted to go straight to voicemail because I know
Yeah.
oftentimes you're in the courthouse, but gosh, I would really love to connect with you and see how you and Susie are doing. How are things going with the house? Is there, to your point, DJ, is there anything that you guys are thinking about doing this spring? And can I provide any vendor recommendations? Give me a call back when you have a second." There is nothing that will ever replace the sound of my voice, the tone, the inflection, my excitement and energy to be trying to connect with them again. I don't care how hard you try, how many exclamation points on text, you're just never going to get it. And there's so many agents who are so afraid to do it. It drives me crazy.
You are so right about the voice, straight to text, voice, like the slide dial, straight to voicemail
Yeah.
thing. You are so absolutely right. So I want to make this point because you just made it. I want to reiterate it, and it was a good one. People want to hear your voice. They also if you want to do a straight to voicemail via slide dial or any of these other straight to voicemail services, and you might think, oh gosh, like Amy said, well, what if they know that I'm not actually calling them, I'm going straight to voicemail? Here's how you would say it. And Amy just gave a great script there. What I would add to that as well is saying, hey, didn't want to bug you. I know you're at work. I'm
Yeah.
shooting this right into your voicemail, but super excited to catch up with you, blah, blah. And so you don't have to, I always say this about, it's kind of like the dating apps. I always say, you don't have to worry about being perceived as a creep if you're not a creep. Like if you're
Right.
not a creep, you don't have to worry about it. You know?
Yes.
So if you're going to someone's voicemail, you don't have to pretend that you're not. You can
Yeah.
explain why you are doing that because you don't want to bug them. Yeah. And by the way, most people aren't going to answer the phone anyway, so you're going to get their
Right. So it's
voicemail
still going to go
regardless.
to their voicemail. Right. And
Yeah.
all of you out there, you can thank us when you try this later today and you get a client calling back who's super excited to talk to you. Right.
But I mean, isn't it really this idea of value, right? Like
Hmm.
it's we've done 500 of these episodes, and I would love to say that that I've sort of extracted this secret elixir of how to be a successful real estate agent over all these episodes, and it seems to be if somebody were to put me on stage and say, what did you learn from interviewing hundreds of top 1% agents in the country, I would say they work really hard and they're constantly thinking about how they can add to their customers' lives, like
Love it.
add
Hmm.
some sort of value. And that's pretty much it. Like
Hmm.
there's a
Hmm.
lot there. I mean, with those two
Yeah.
things, that's kind of everything, and it's not
Yeah.
easy. But it's this consistently, how like Amy, like you were saying, how can I add value today? I mean,
Hmm.
it can be as simple as, you know, if sometimes it's funny too, because people are like, well, how do I find more leads? How do I get more leads? It's like, well,
Hmm.
okay, do you go to the grocery store? Yes. Okay. Do you run into people at the grocery store? Well, there's people at the grocery store.
I
Okay.
try not to. I hate when I hear them say, I try not to. It's like,
Yeah.
what?
Right. Well, and I'm not saying you should talk to everyone at the grocery store, but I'm saying if
Right.
you can think about, forget about leads, if you think about smiling at people
Hmm.
or acknowledging them or complimenting them or saying something affirming, um
Hmm.
that is genuine, authentic, something that moves you. Like I was at a committee meeting with the Chicago Association of Realtors yesterday, and a friend of mine or one of the people on my committee had purple hair, and I was like, I got to remember to tell her I love that purple hair.
Hmm.
um if there's always ways we can add value to people's lives, and if we consistently do that, whether it's a compliment, whether it's being of service, whether it's checking in on them, this is what wins the race. It's
Hmm.
always about effort, I think.
It's effort and it's care.
Yeah.
I mean, and you had said there was what you would say about agents is, constantly providing value and working really hard. But I would also say, really being authentic. I think as
Yes.
agents, when you are looking at top producers, and I'm not saying you shouldn't look at sort of your real estate heroes, or you see a top producer, in your office and you say, dang it, I really want to be like so and so. Yes, there are certain things about that person that you're attracted to, but don't lose yourself, because the thing is that, and this is what I also say to agents is, look, you have a great engine behind you with At Properties Christie's International Real Estate. We've got a lot of stuff that you are able to go into a listing presentation or sit down with a buyer and feel super confident. But here's what I want you to work on. Who are you and why are you bringing them the value? Because the thing is that they're going to pick you because of you, probably not much of anything else. Yes, you've got all of this other great stuff, which is going to add to that confidence. And, I think what I love the most in coaching is when I get to that point where I can work with an agent and I help them find themselves. Not everybody can just pick up the phone and be super confident and be able to say certain things. Doesn't mean you're not going to be successful, or it doesn't mean that you don't have to start slow. Start with a slide dial and be as nervous as all get out. It's okay. It gets
It's okay to
easier over
it's
time.
okay to be where you are. So in other
Yes.
words, if you are
And to mess
scared,
up, you know?
if you're messing up, I mean, look, the reality of it is the phrase that I've hated my entire professional career has been the fake it till you make it. I don't
Hmm.
like that phrase
Yeah.
because it implies that we're going to pretend that we
Yeah.
have competence when we do not.
Hmm.
I think it's way better to acknowledge insecurity, fear. I think people relate to that. I think
Yeah.
people now ultimately we want to develop skill, and we want to hone those skills and develop those. But I think the being authentic, if I could make any sort of suggestion to our audience, whatever you're into, I don't care
Hmm.
what it is, whatever you're passionate about outside of real estate, somehow figure out a way to incorporate that into your real estate practice. If you're into
Hmm.
horses, if you're into racing cars,
Totally.
whatever it might
Your
be,
dogs,
your
whatever it
dog,
is.
your
Yes.
kids.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bring that figure out a way to put that into your bring that into your business, and you will attract other people who of course also have those interests, but
Yeah.
also people we demand authenticity from
Hmm.
our service providers. We want to know what you are like. We want to know what you do at home. You can set boundaries around what you're willing to
Yeah.
share. Privacy of course is important, but we want to know who you are as a human being, and thankfully we have technology that allows us to share those things. But people want to know who they are working with. They don't.
Hmm.
The skill is important, of course, but also the human side of it. Who are you as a human being? And if you
Yeah.
can demonstrate that along the way of also providing value as you continue to work with your clients, you're just going to have a massive success.
Yeah, I think especially just because, we are in an industry that is so personal for our clients. I mean, there is personality related to, the selling of a property. When we go in and we are evaluating their house and giving them a price, there's a lot of sensitivity to that because there's a lot of pride. And when the price isn't maybe what they expected it to be, it's a personal thing for them, right? Because they believe, gosh, but this was so special to me. I don't see why everybody else can see it. So, you know, I say a lot that I think one of the biggest things for, being in real estate is that high emotional component and really being able to lean in and understand, who these people are, because it is personal unlike other industries. And so, back to your point, DJ, the more authentic you can be, and the more that they can, you don't want to show them all your flaws, but like when they're feeling a little imperfect, if they're feeling like, okay, I'm seeing the human side of this person, I feel more comfortable sharing my imperfections or some of the things we're worried about, because they have to open up about a lot. And so I think as agents, again, it's the more you are you, you are going to attract the people that are like you, and you're going to actually enjoy working with them more, instead of working with people that are constantly pushing back on you or not believing what you're saying. But it kind of starts with us figuring out who we are. And I remind my agents all the time, you are CEO, you get to pick out all this stuff, you get to decide what you want to wear, who you want to focus on, how you want to prospect. You get to pick out the how, but you still have to do. And sometimes it takes a little while, and what we were saying before, you're going to screw up, you're going to feel stupid, you're going to get nervous. But I was talking to an agent earlier this morning who just got her first luxury opportunity, and she was like, I was so nervous, I had to wear all black because I felt like I was sweating everywhere. And she said, but what I told myself is that this is a growth moment. I am
It is.
growing as I'm sitting here terrified. And I said, yes, you are.
Well, that's true. Both things can be true. I am scared and I'm excited, and both of those things can be present at the same time. Yeah, I think it is so much about uh, going all the way back to giving, right? We
Yeah.
always come back to value. Like, how do we improve people's lives, right? We're going to help them buy a home. We're going to help them sell a home. We're going to help them rent a home. We're also going to allow them to come to us when they need things fixed, things moved, and we're going to let them in on our how we cope with the ups and downs of
Hmm.
a real estate transaction, for example. So I think the emotional sort of component, or the emotional maturity of an agent, is really important to be able to anticipate the
Hmm.
emotional reaction of like disappointment in advance. So I
Hmm.
think really good agents, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, know, okay, I'm about to deliver some rough news, because we
Yes.
know that at any part, at some point in every transaction, there's bad news. Every
Yeah.
transaction, there's at least one piece of bad news. So this is something we get to practice a lot. So my point, what I'm trying to get to is, if you can identify, okay, I know what the experience or I'm going to ask other agents who have been through this kind of thing, what's a typical client reaction to
Hmm.
not getting a home, or having an offer come in goofy, or whatever the bad news is. Being able to predict that may be happening really makes, because I like, I bought a home a few years ago, was not my first purchase, and I had forgotten, because it had been several years
You
between when
forgot
I
the
bought.
pain
I,
and the
I had forgotten the
anxiety.
pain. And it was a really
Yeah.
pretty easy transaction. And I
Yeah.
was like, it was so stressful. And I
Yeah.
was and I was thinking, God, I forgot how
Mhm.
stressful this is. I mean, I'm not a
Yeah.
practicing agent, so I don't know what a lot of our agents know, but boy, I really needed somebody to like kind of give me a hug at certain times during the
Totally.
a metaphorical hug, I guess. But the point is I think agents, we're talking about a huge financial decisions here with respect to home
Hmm.
ownership. Could be the largest financial purchase possibly in the family. But um understanding what the emotions are that are at stake, and
Hmm.
understanding how to cope with those ups and downs, I think really separates the wheat from the chaff, with respect to top producers.
I agree. And I think what I would also say is, and this is something that I feel like I had on sort of my own journey of growth in my professional career, is I sort of felt like, God, I'm supposed to just know how to do all of this stuff if I'm going to be really good. And, what I've really learned is, you've got to continue developing your craft. And, you don't come out of the gate brand new knowing how to really be really solid when it comes to the emotional piece. To your point, DJ, people may not necessarily know, like, how do I respond or what should I anticipate? But, continuing to learn, read books, get mentored by other agents. But then also, it's just, you kind of have to go through enough transactions to then know,
Yeah.
I know what's going to happen this time. But one of the people that I really love is it's Chris Voss, right, with a V,
Mhm.
the FBI
Yeah.
hostage negotiator. So I read
Negotiator.
his
Yeah.
yeah, so I read his book, and we actually did kind of a workshop, Kevin and I, where we took some of his top tips and kind of tried to apply them specifically to real estate situations and to sort of like how to use his scripting because we aren't saving a life, but sometimes we are, or saving a house, right?
Sure.
And one of the ones that I loved, to your point, DJ, was I think it was called the accusation audit. And where it kind of is like, look, DJ, I know you're not going to love me, you're going to be really upset when you hear this news. It's sort of where you put that into their psyche, where you're already setting them up for a level of disappointment, or they're already thinking, well, I can't be that disappointed in Amy, right? So you kind of you but that was a technique that I probably used at certain points without even knowing it. But once I learned that, I thought, oh my gosh, I use it on my kids. I wish I could use it on my dogs. I use it on my husband. You know what I mean? But suddenly it was like, this is a communication technique that I can use that allows me to get the person on the other side prepared for something so bad so that when I deliver the actual news, it doesn't feel quite as awful. Right. And he has a lot of interesting techniques.
Yeah, Chris Voss. This is the Never Split the Difference
Yeah.
author, famous FBI hostage negotiator guy. Definitely read this book. But this is what we're talking about: emotional sort of competence, I would say, or
Hmm.
emotional coping competence. Like
Hmm.
real estate agents, if anything, yes, they're going to sharpen their skills with respect to market related data, right? They're going to know.
Hmm.
Hopefully, they're going to know their numbers, but also knowing sort of the touch points of the clients, understanding sort of what are the motivations, what are the emotions, what are the personality types, and trying to cope ahead. I like the word cope ahead, saying, okay, tomorrow I have to deliver some bad news to
Right.
so and so, X client. And like Amy said, maybe I'll use one of the techniques to sort of maybe soften the blow a little bit. But I also, you can cope ahead and start to think about how might that feel to somebody.
Hmm.
Okay, they lost the deal. Okay, how might that feel to them? They're going to feel probably pretty defeated. They're going to feel
Hmm.
sad. They're going to feel maybe angry. Maybe they'll blame me. You sort of need to go through all of these different instances in your mind and put yourself in their position and say, okay, let's cope for all of these. Let's cope ahead for all of these different inevitabilities. And we don't know which one's going to actually turn out, but I'm going to prepare ahead so that when they respond with whatever their emotional response is, which is going to be probably severe, I am going to have a don't worry, it's okay
Hmm.
because X. And
Hmm.
and that I think is really the key, because I know, even as a home buyer myself, and home seller, I've done that several times. I just all I ever want in a transaction. So think of me as more of like a layperson. I just want somebody to go, it's all going to be okay. Like
Yeah,
that's all
totally.
I ever really
Hmm.
want somebody to say. Somebody who I trust to tell
That, and
me
then here's what we're going to do next. You want to
exactly.
know it's going to be okay,
Yes.
and then they're the ones that are going to move the ball down the field. And that's what we have to do as agents. We say it's okay, but here's the plan. And I loved your idea of as an agent kind of taking in the shock of the bad news first, because let's face it, there is an emotional component that we go through. We get so tight and close to these clients of ours, and their loss, let's face it, is our loss. It's, the better the agent, sometimes the more emotional, or the harder we can take it. But the best agents understand that, take the emotion in, allow themselves to be sad, be frustrated, be all the things that you need to be, allow it to pass, and then recognize I have to be the one that can go in with a we got this attitude. There's something else for us out there, and be able to remove the emotion to allow the clients to have as much emotion as needed. And I think that's important, because sometimes an agent will get the bad news and doesn't take that time to process it and get to where they need to, and they'll call the
Yeah.
client too fast, and then everybody's emotional, right? And then no one's helping anyone. So, and I think that is practice, right? I think there's a million times probably early on that I was super emotional and called the client right away and then
Sure.
thought, "Ooh, that didn't go so well." So, it's a lot of this. And what I also say to so many agents is you can be a serial student though, too. You can read books. We have a lot of classes. We've got a lot of programs that you can be in. At some point, You got to jump off the diving board straight into the deep end, and you got to just start, working and trying to figure it out and make a ton of mistakes. And look, we've all survived. DJ, you're sitting here. I'm sitting here. How many times have we blown it? Probably more than
Like
we wanted
5
to.
times today even. I've blown it, many, many times, today. And it's a matter of effort and
Yeah.
discipline,
Hmm.
discipline, I don't even wanna say discipline, that's a word nobody likes. Habits.
Hmm.
Let's
Hmm.
build good habits. Yeah,
Totally.
discipline is a word that we should probably just get do away with. It's a
And
word
give
that is.
ourselves some grace. The other thing that I see
Oh,
so much with agents is we're so hard on ourselves. I was in this group
yes.
earlier, and this agent was just sort of not beating up on himself a little bit, but he just was just talking about his lack of confidence. And it was so great because we have these accountability groups that meet every other week. And it's five of them. And and two of his other team members were like, Robert, you are like amazing. Because he was talking about reaching out to an agent in his community that I think is retiring from the business. And a mutual friend of theirs had said, you guys should meet because maybe you'd be a great agent to take his business over. And so this guy, Robert, was like, oh, I don't know. Like, what if I'm not a good enough agent or I'm not the personality type that he would want? And somebody from his group said, Robert, you know what? Instead of you thinking that he may be your lucky star, you might be his. Don't cut yourself, so you need to cut yourself some more slack. You are amazing. And so I see that so often amongst our agents. And I think one of the things that is also really important, this is a lonely business as a real estate agent.
Very lonely.
We can come into the office and we all sit around the water cooler and talk about our clients, but a lot of times we go back and we're really the ones dealing with a lot of these people's situations, and that's really hard. And so on our end of things, when we really try to support from a management standpoint, is really being able to see the agent as the individual. How are things going? How is work? How's life? That means so much for an agent to feel like they are really seen. And it's just to never underestimate that, because you'd be surprised some of the agents out there, the things that they have going on and how they are still able to carry themselves with such grace, running businesses, and are all CEOs having to support themselves. It's just, it's just amazing. So I just think for so many agents that are out there, you're all rock stars, and just recognize, what you do is incredible, and just believe in yourself. Cause I don't think agents always hear that enough. They should hear it from themselves, but they don't.
Yeah, and they should you should be in community. Find your
Hmm.
community. Even though you may be an individual producer and you're producing big numbers, find your tribe. Find
Yeah,
people that can help support you, whether it's your brokerage or whether it's just a community of other agents. We are in a sort of communal kind of business. I mean, it's
yeah.
cooperative for
Hmm.
sure, and or at least it's supposed to be. And so this is an opportunity, you even though you might be working remotely, which pretty much everyone is these days,
Hmm.
um, you don't have to not be you don't have to be apart from people. So
Right.
this idea of get support, get and At Properties does a great job of this. So we should really talk about, if anyone out there is, and you guys are not just in the Chicagoland area
Hmm.
anymore,
Yeah.
you're kind of all over. Let's talk about that. So, if agents
Yeah.
are wanting a different experience, maybe they're not getting a certain amount of support or training or resources at their current brokerage, and maybe thinking about switching, looking to see what other options exist. This is the
Sure.
year we're seeing a lot of movement. Um, how should agents start to explore Christie's at Properties?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, locally, we're at Properties Christie's International Real Estate and around Chicagoland, Wisconsin, and Michigan. But we do have affiliates. We've got at Properties in Indianapolis, at Properties in Dallas. We've got an amazing affiliate in Detroit. Up in Wisconsin, we've got an amazing affiliate in Madison, in the Madison area. And then now the cool thing is we've got some really great agents just across the country. Christie's Sereno out in California, California, down to John R. Woods in Naples. We've got a lot of really great people. And really what's happening and what I'm enjoying so much is what we have built as a culture and an opportunity to train and develop agents. We are really figuring out how to take that and expand that out into our affiliate network. So a lot of the programming that we do, a lot of the support that we try to give to our agents, from accountability to, how to develop a great listing presentation. We've got a really comprehensive approach to training, and our technology, platform has been really phenomenal to support the back end of our agents. So I would just say, if anybody is interested, it's easy to find me on social media, or you can email me. But we really feel like it's also the idea of attraction. I don't recruit as actively anymore, but when I did, I would always say, this is about you finding a great fit, but it's also about us finding a great fit, right? It should really feel like a partnership. And I also feel like it isn't so much us hiring agents, but it's really them deciding who do they want to hire to help them run their business, and how can we be that little engine pack behind them, just to really make sure that they can take off. And I feel just so fortunate, because I think culture for us has always been a really big thing. And DJ, you said this earlier, we kind of just we're growing and did a lot of things. And I think one of it is, like, we really just focused on not so much what everybody else was doing. We really just took a look at, like, what should we be focusing on as a company? And, the question that we always have is, are we doing it good enough, or can we be doing it better? And
Yeah.
are our agents feeling supported, or can we be doing better? And, and so we really kind of just came from that vein. And I think the funniest is, we've just never taken ourselves, we are very serious about creating successful agents, but we also have a lot of fun. And, I think sometimes that goes out of people's lives too fast when it comes to work. And I think it's finding the fun again. Even though the market has its challenges, there's so much opportunity out there. And sometimes when we let ourselves go to have a little fun, it's amazing how the universe will open up for us.
Agreed. Perfect way to wrap up the show. Amy, thank you so much. Yes,
DJ,
go
thank
out,
you.
have fun. Oh, I am so happy to. I hope to have you on in the future as well. I want everyone who's listening, who has made it this far, to please subscribe to Coffee with Amy and Kevin. So you can find that on Instagram and YouTube. Should they do a weekly show, talk about the sort of state of the market, what you can do to keep your business moving forward, at Coffee with Amy and Kevin. We will have links to that in the show notes. If you are in any of the markets that Amy mentioned, you're interested in exploring other brokerages, at Properties Christie's International would love to talk to you. So please check them out at properties.com, atproperties.com. And on behalf of our audience, we want to thank Amy for her time today. She is a busy woman, and she was kind enough to be on our show. So thank you on behalf of the audience, Amy. And on behalf of Amy and myself, we want to thank our audience for continuing to support our show. Please tell a friend. Think of one other realtor that could benefit from hearing this conversation with Amy, and send them a link to this episode. The best way you can do that, send them over to our website. keepingitrealpod.com is where all of our episodes live. Also on every podcast directory out there, just search Keeping It Real, hit that subscribe. Amy, thank you so much. I had a great
Oh,
time with
thank
you, and
you.
excited
Likewise.
to have you on in the future, because I want to talk to you about more things related to how to become successful in real estate. So
Oh, well,
Amy,
thank you. I
thank you,
appreciate
and
it.
we will see everybody on the next episode.
Bye, everybody.